Madam Secretary, may we have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Vice Chairman Abshire.
Here.
Mr. Barris.
Here.
Mr. Barty.
Here.
Mr. Brain.
Here.
Mr. Landry. President Stelly.
Here.
Chairman Anderpont.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Our first item on this evening's agenda is to receive requests for grant funding from the Gaming Fund. Item 1A, Ward 1, $50,500. Ward 1 Fire Protection, District 1, for matching funds towards the purchase of new firefighting equipment. And item 1B, Ward 8, $136,920. Waterworks District Number 8 of Wards 3 and 8.
Move on 1A
for matching
and
funds
1B.
towards
Second.
water tanks repairs. We have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objections? That motion carries. Item 2, presentation. This is for informational purposes only. Administrative presentation of the parish proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. Mr. Beam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's our pleasure this evening to present to you our proposed budget for 2023 to the police jury. And we do have some slides as usual. Before we get into that, I would like to take the opportunity, though, at the outset, to thank a few folks. As you're aware, the budget process is lengthy. It actually starts way back in August. It's complex and it's big, which makes Finance Director Kelly Fontenot the right person for the job. She's done an excellent job in this, leading it. Her right hand in this, and actually the one she has asked to be the lead on it, is Judy Hewlett. And Judy, we're very proud of all of her efforts in working with the department. She's sitting to Kelly's right, and we appreciate all your help in this too over the last several months. Also want to thank in finance, Kyle Judice, and also some of my co-workers in administration, Dane Boland, Jessica Booth, and Alberto Galan. And also, just a big thank you to all the departments, directors, and staff, many of whom are here tonight, who worked on this throughout the last few months. It truly takes an effort by all the departments to have this come together in a way that we feel we can present to you, the committee, and ultimately the jury for full approval. With that, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and go through the slides.
Please proceed.
What you'll see in our outline will be similar to what we do. I like to start with, in previous years, I like to start with a little economic environment review, because so much of what we're able to do in the services you provide are based on the local economy. So let's just cover a little of that briefly. We'll then go through the numbers in some detail, and at the end we try to take the 20,000-foot view, look ahead. What are things like in the parish? What do we see going ahead that this budget would be a part of? So on the economic trends, I think the news is very good. It's clear we're still in a recovery mode. You're going to hear the word recovery a lot in this presentation. But a lot of things have been good in terms of economic trends. One of them, which is a stalwart in our economy, of course, is the petrochemical sector. Throughout, even during COVID and the hurricanes themselves and recovery, it's been strong. And that is the backbone of the local economy, along with other things. But that starts us off and makes it much easier to try to get some good results in terms of economic indicators. In addition, the gaming sector has rebounded from pre-COVID levels. That's a big deal. Retail and gaming, of course, are a lot more affected by things like COVID or disasters, and to see their numbers coming up, and this is before the horseshoe has opened, which we'll talk about later, and that's actually, you have an item on your regular meeting agenda tonight. Our sales tax revenues have been solid throughout the year, as well as property taxes. When I say it's been positive in 2022, that means it's actually coming in a little higher than budgeted. So that hats off to finance for having a good forecast there, which we're able to live within. And then no small thing, in 2023, even more than this year, you're going to start seeing and have federal dollars, recovery funds coming through the parish or the state to the parish on many different things. Those are obviously good for the people and agencies and businesses that need them, but it's also an economic stimulus. So we're glad to see all that. So in going through the numbers, a lot of the basics, we want to do the overall comparison for the full budget. And then we'll break that down into the revenues and the various categories under expenditures. So this is the big overview in a stacked bar chart format. On your left is this year's budget, 2022. That's $395.1 million. Our proposed budget for next year is $427.1 million. That is an 8.1% increase. You'll see the categories at the bottom, and just from eyeballing it, we like to show it in the chart form here, and then we'll go to the numbers. You can see the purple color, which is capital, is the largest category. It's the largest category in the whole budget, and it's got the most increase. That's actually good news because that means you're investing in the future in all sorts of things, infrastructure, people, many other things. So let's take that same information and put it in table form. So I'll keep this up for a little while because this is probably the best slide for the overall presentation to see where the money is. Again, looking at your far left column, same categories as the previous slide. 2022 budget. At the bottom, you'll see the $395 million and the categories that make it up. And going across to 2023, and the difference you'll see at the bottom right is $32 million, and there's your 8.1%. Couple of points on this. First, notice, as I said just a minute ago, the capital funds, $150 million, $150.2, largest category, and it's $20.3 million of the $32 million difference. So 2/3 of the budget increase is your capital funds. And again, that's a good thing. And largely it's timing. It's just very hard with capital projects to time them perfectly due to delays, supply chain, and so forth. But that's what makes up the difference. Let's go ahead and, as we get into some of the detail, I'd like to cover some of the revenues first. What we normally do is a pie chart. You can see the various categories. This one's going to look different than many previous years. And the reason is because of the prior year fund balance at the top. The green wedge, that's 36% of the entire budget revenue, which is $157 million. You go, well, why is that the case? Usually sales and property taxes or ad valorem are your two biggest categories. But this is such a big year for, I'll keep saying it, but you have, when you need, think of fund balances as your savings account. And there are times you want to dip into that. If you're dipping in too much and it's just operational expenses, you can't do that a lot. It'll start getting too low. But the big reason this is the largest part of the budget is because we're using the money for these capital projects. So think of savings put away over many years, and in 2023 is a big year to spend that, and that's really the basic reason for that. And it's mainly roads, bridges, and buildings, of course. I think that, Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, that also, I'm sorry, that's on the expenditure side. But is it for building repairs as well? Hurricane repairs, the money needed for that? Okay.
And ARP funding.
ARP, thank you, Kelly. Yes, American Rescue Plan funding. We don't want to look that over. That's $40 million to be spent ultimately, but those are well underway. That's separate from hurricane recovery, but it's going toward, as we speak, several waterworks projects and some drainage projects, which you'll see later in the presentation. The other category of intergovernmental revenues, again, these are all kind of related. That is the second largest category, federal funds. You have a lot of money coming from the federal government through different recovery categories, and they're needed, and it's a good thing. It's just unusual from what you normally see in non-recovery years. And then you can see the other. Gaming makes only 3.1%. That's down a little simply because of the other categories. So let's break down just a few of these revenue sources that we track. This is the 1 cent sales tax you have. Remember that you have also a 1.5 cent sales tax. They both trend similarly. So we just show this one. And you can sort of see sales taxes they're a little more volatile than property taxes, not in a bad way. It's just, it tends to go with the economy. So if you look at the years on this chart, 2014 through 2017 and 18, that's the economic boom years here in Calcasieu. Sales taxes went up a lot. They went down in terms of coming off the boom. And then, of course, 2020, we hit COVID and hurricanes. But look, we've come back up, and it's plateaued a bit, but not in a bad way. We're still having revenues come in at a level that's higher than some of those boom years. So we're very happy with this. Our projection for sales taxes next year is only to go up 1%. It's just hard to know. You've got competing things of inflation, but also potential recession issues. But we could have some really big projects kick off in 23 as well. So I think this is we think this is a very sound way to forecast in terms of sales. Pretty much what we're seeing now. So this chart, I always want to remind everybody, these are not property tax revenues. This is valuations. So when you hear somebody say, what is your tax base in Calcasieu? This is what we're talking about. And that's simply the value of all the property added up in the parish, residential, commercial, industrial, and utilities. And this year, it's actually 2021 would technically be this year for this purpose. It's about $2.6 billion. That's expected to go up a little over $2.8 billion. You take that tax base, you apply the tax rate for each of the property taxes, and that gives you your revenues. But this is a very good outcome. The 5.7% is the latest information we have. Just as a reminder, though, we're keeping it really a little lower than that, as we've covered those in different discussions with juror groups. But this is the latest information we have. It's kind of more of a nice, steady upward trend. And then we want to talk about gaming briefly, because although in percentage terms it's not a huge revenue generator compared to the whole budget, it is so helpful for so many of your capital projects, many of your bond projects. And again, you can kind of figure out this graph easily if you look at the few years, and then they're down during COVID and hurricane recovery period. But look what's happened and what we project in 2023. At $34.5 million, this is the sum of all the public agencies gaming, not just police jury, so all the cities and the parish. That's actually above what we experienced in terms of revenues in the highest number in 2019. So as you might suspect, the reason we project that is because on December 12th, the Horseshoe Lake Charles is what it's called, but it's going to be in Westlake, will open. So full year 23, that will be in operation. And that will, we do also, though, in that forecast, have some of the overall revenues offset from the other casinos, just because you got a whole new one coming on. It will take from them, we don't think it'll take a lot, but that's all into that whole number calculation. So again, things are going in the right direction on all these revenue sources. Before I go into expenditures, I went through that kind of quickly. Any questions on the general revenue side? Okay. This is the overall look at our expenditure side, and this chart's a little deceptive. I actually realized that disaster recovery, the green at the bottom, it looks like the biggest wedge to me. It's actually not, but it's big. Public Works, that's your biggest department, and there's so many things under that. That's still the biggest category of spending, but as you can see, disaster recovery is a close second. And that, it's for things we really need here, and it's good to have this kind of money that we have to expend it on. I will get into what makes that up in just a few minutes. Matter of fact, that'll be the slide after next. But if you kind of go around the different pie wedges there, very similar to what you see in previous years, other than the disaster recovery side. So let's go, we're not going to go through each category, but we're going to go through some of the main ones. The first one is operations. And again, we're in an environment like every business and household where The cost of everything is very high, and we've got to manage that, though. So in looking at 2023, our instructions to the departments, which they handled, I think, brilliantly, it said, look, we have got to be competitive in wages and salaries here at the police jury. It is a tight labor market. Let's make sure we don't get behind on that as best we can. But in order to do that, you're going to have to watch cost on the other parts of the operational budget. So if you kind of think of every department doing that, we're able to do it and do it in a way where the forecasted operational budget is only 4.9% over this year's budget, which I think is very modest. That is not big, but it allows us to do a lot of good things, especially in terms of our employee retention and recruitment. So I'm going to go through the three categories that make up that increase. One I've already alluded to. We have to budget price increases on everything we purchase, but it also includes significant thought to wage adjustment for all of our employees. And we still have a lot of positions that we need to fill like everybody else, so we focused on that. The middle item is the correctional center. A reminder for all of you and any citizens watching, parishes in Louisiana are responsible to provide the correctional center, that is the building of it, the maintenance of it, and you have to pay for prisoner care. For many years, we actually pay the sheriff, and it's been $3.50 per prisoner per day. And modern day, that just doesn't cut it. And so in a very agreeable discussion with him, and many of you were involved, we upped that, and it's reflected in this budget to $5 per prisoner per day. But it's been many years since that was increased, so that was justified. And then on the far right, it's simple, but it's expensive. Utility costs are up, electric utilities. This is primarily rate increases. I know, Mr. Chairman, we were talking, I think you had asked in one of our discussions, is this some of it adding new buildings? It's not really. We're, of course, repairing a lot of buildings that are going to come back on fully, but we think this is mainly due to rate increases. But with all that said, to come in under 5%, we feel is very reasonable for operations. Category disaster recovery is big, like you could see in that pie chart. It's primarily two things: hurricane repairs for buildings in all of our facilities, $35 million, and then the ongoing drainage lateral debris cleanout. We're very deep into that, but 2023, it's going to be just as strong. So a lot of progress, but as you know, this was a big apple to take bites out of. So in 23, the good news is we have the funds. A lot of it has to be reimbursed through insurance or FEMA. Cash flow we got to handle, but that'll come to about $118 million. Just as a matter of information, if you just took that one category out, that wasn't my plan on that. That's good. There we go. Okay. You're talking about a budget of $308 million. It's just a big, big difference. But the good news is it's going toward a lot of things that are needed. So you got operations, disaster recovery, and we want to talk about those capital dollars, which we mentioned earlier. I want to spend a little time on this. $150 million out of your budget. That is a significant amount of money invested in many things. The obvious one, you can see the biggest one, is our transportation infrastructure. That's road construction, overlay, repair. That's bridge construction, bridge repair. We have 1,100 miles of unincorporated roads that you oversee. That means there's so much to keep up with, and then you have other new roads, which we're of course in the middle of some of those as well. So even with all the changes we've seen over the last 10 years in this parish, roads and bridges, and of course drainage, which is stormwater on the right in the purple, very big categories. Your major facilities, bottom right, that is your bond projects, which I have a slide on in just a minute. A lot of the newer facilities, which you're all familiar with. And then the other categories, we do have parks. We're in the middle of having to repair all of our park properties, so there's not as much new capital, but that's simply because we got to repair them first, not because they're not important. So a few details on the transportation. The top left, you can see some of the roads we've been undergoing, still are. Coach Williams Drive, Johnny Bro Road, Ham Reed Road. 51 miles of road overlay budgeted in 2023. That's a lot of roads, guys. And I know we say this a lot, but you can travel all over this state, even Texas, as good as their roads are. You won't find a better road system than the police jury of Calcasieu Parish. And you can go from Alligator Road up in Ward 5 down to Rosenall and others and everywhere in between, and they are nice, and that's no small thing, and we certainly appreciate the taxpayers supporting that. One of those taxes recently was the road and drainage property tax, which passed, so we got to keep that going. Bridges are a big deal. I usually don't list bridges here, but we thought, let's throw some of these in. We're completing those 4 listed, and then we are going to start new bridge construction or repair. Well, these are not, I think these are actually new bridges, but keep in mind, I don't know, Alan, off the top of my head how many bridges we have, but it's well over 100. Alan, I'm not trying to trick him. I didn't ask him to get that information earlier. Stormwater or drainage, whatever you want to call it. We call it stormwater. Louisiana Avenue Detention Basin, David Bayou, and North Perkins Ferry Road. This picture is very recent, and it puts a smile on all our faces. That is the actual Louisiana Avenue Detention Basin, and I'm looking at Chris Landry sitting below that image, and I'm thinking, were it not for a juror, Chris Landry in this case, many years ago, letting us know, hey, there's a property here, and they're selling it. It's been a long time, but hats off to Chris and all the jurors who supported this. You can see it's coming along well. That's just north of McNeese Street at Louisiana Avenue. If you want to get a sense of where it is, it's well underway. It's not the only one. David Bayou Detention Basin is going to be done in 23, at least start. That's in Sulphur, and that came through a lot of good discussions with jurors. And then in the Moss Bluff area near North Perkins Ferry Road, we're actually going to have what I think in essence is a new drainage lateral that will have some ability to relieve flooding concerns up in that area. There's many more. Those are just 3 I wanted to highlight, but drainage will continue to be for many years a key focus in our capital spending. And then what we call major facilities, bond funded. The Forensic Center had a groundbreaking. That's the picture at the top. Many jurors there are happy to see it. It was a beautiful day and nice to get that started. So that is actually underway now. The other picture I want to show, because we probably get more questions on this than all the others. That is the actual project, the Burton Coliseum RV and camper improvements. There's a whole lot of repairs and improvements going to go on Burton next couple of years. This is just one of them. But we wanted to show you that it's actually happening. And we are aware the parking lot is an issue out there too. We're trying to get to all of it as quick as we can. The 2 in the middle, Animal Services and Calcasieu Judicial Complex, those are both in a category where we're having to take a basically rescoping of it because it's gotten too costly. You'll recall bids came in for Animal Services. They were very high. It was unfortunate, but it's enabled us to go back, and I want to hats off to Nathan and Claire Terracina and Animal Services. They got right on it and said, where can we make this happen? We are going to have a very nice facility. We've just got to get it more within a budget range that you're able to pay for. That's coming along very well. I can't give you a date when we think we're going to have new designs, but it's coming along quick. Same category, if you will. We're a little less further along exactly what we have to do. The judicial complex we want to do, because of what we saw with Animal Services, we said, look, let's take a look at this now before we even try to bid it out and see where we're going to need to, if it comes down to that, where we need to maybe cut back. But still, again, we're going to have a nice facility, but you got to live within your means. These are all the good news on this, and I hadn't been able to say this for a long time, but getting started on the Forensic Center, on the Burton Complex, and it's not up here because it's basically almost finished, is juvenile justice. So bond projects are moving along. We're very happy about that. Okay, that's a quick rush through all the expenditure side. I'm getting close to the end. This is the last couple of slides. Before I do, any questions on the general expenditures? I know I went through that pretty quickly.
Don't see any.
So we do want to look ahead. I borrowed a phrase, and this is in the budget letter we sent out. Disaster recovery is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So we all have a different view of what the last 2 years has been like, but we have to remember that a recovery from the strongest storm, tied for the strongest to ever hit this state, hit us in 2020. At a time when we had a pandemic for the first time in 100 years. It was followed by a second hurricane, an ice storm, a flood in some of this area, and there's just nothing to compare it to. It will take time. And if we kind of understand that, it becomes a little easier to see the good things that are going on. So how would we show the good things going on? This is my version of it. If you look at a stand of trees here, you go, what are you showing that for, Brian? Anybody notice anything about that picture? Can you see anything different that maybe?
The giraffe?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Can you write down that Tony Stelly found the giraffe first? If you look at the right-hand side, it is hidden in front of a picture. I mean, in front of a tree. This to me, and I don't mind if y'all laugh at me for this one, I think this picture is a great metaphor for Calcasieu Parish. Why is that? If you look at this whole picture, what do you see? I see a lot of trees with undergrowth, vines laying on the ground, dead grass. And think about what we know is here in our physical environment in Calcasieu in 2022. For 2 years, we're still looking at tarps on roofs. We're looking at businesses that haven't reopened. We know that litter has been probably worse than it's ever been. Debris still in the ditches. It's too many reminders of how far we've got to go. It's understandable that we're sort of upset about how long this is taking. So what happens when you view it that way, you sometimes miss all the good things, and there are a lot of good things going on in this parish. But like the giraffe in this picture, they're hard to see. They're hiding in plain sight. So I thought, let me cover some of those so we can remind ourselves that it's not all bad. There's a lot of good. And so I'm going to end with just a couple of slides that I hope give us some reason for hope, and not just hope, but some real tangible things that are showing us we're a very strong area that's come a long way in 2 years. Yes, we have a long way to go, but we're coming along well. This is the same slide as before. I just want to remind you some of the positive things. That's through now. This has been happening in 2022, but what does it look like going ahead? This budget we're proposing to you, what is it going to look like next year and next couple of years? This slide will probably look familiar. Every year, Dr. Lawrence Scott goes through the state, visits with all the areas, Lake Charles is one, and his economic forecast. That's his forecast for 23 and 24 in terms of jobs in this MSA, which counts Calcasieu Parish and Cameron Parish. And you can see since 2020, things have been going up. They're looking better already. He forecast a very positive 2 years for this area. And if some things fall into place in his forecast, and they have to, primarily maybe one or a couple of those LNGs over the next 2 years, this would be the best job growth percentage-wise in the whole state. Let me try to cover those. I'd like to go into a little detail that's sort of why I believe he's on to something here with his forecast. Just a few areas that make that up. Industrial construction sector employment is increasing. That's separate from new LNGs. That's refineries, chemical complexes. A lot of the industrial construction is a key category here. Those numbers are up. At Chenault, now their tax renewal has to pass in December, but we're optimistic they do. They will be able to perform major infrastructure upgrades they need out there. That's roads, water, and sewer. A lot of people think that's been there. It hasn't. And they're kind of hamstrung. If they get that extension, they will bond the monies and start a whole new set of projects, which you got to have all that to get industry out there. You can't have no sewer, no water, and bad roads. Many of you familiar at Chenault too, they're going to have a National Guard Readiness Center built out there on that property right off of I-210. Lake Charles Regional Airport. I talked to Heath Allen earlier this week, director of the airport. They've got multi-million-dollar projects going on as we speak out there, improving it. In addition, emplanements at the airport are up 10% over 2019. Not COVID. Higher numbers than pre-COVID. Here in Lake Charles Regional, 10% higher. That is it's an industry that's tough on small markets, but that's factors beyond our control. But what he and that board have done out there are magnificent, and they deserve a lot of kudos. And I have asked him, because it's been a while, if he could come maybe in January and give you all an update. There's good news going on at both Chenault and Lake Charles Regional. Let's talk about these LNG projects. There's 3 of them, and all 3 are expected at some point in 2023 to announce their what they call final investment decisions. The first is Driftwood. That's Tellurian is the company. That's the project in South Carlos, West Calcasieu. You're all familiar with it. Several of us went out there the other day. Judd was one of them. They are going. They are pile driving and all sorts of clearing. They just don't have the final investment decision for the whole project. When you hear the CEO who visited down here, he can explain it better than I can. I just walked away feeling like it wasn't some story. That it's just going for the long term, it's a better decision. We feel very optimistic. Judd, I felt that way in that meeting, that will probably be announced sometime in 2023. The second one, excuse me, which is not too far off, Cameron LNG's expansion. Now that is in Cameron Parish in the Hackberry area. They've been operating. They've got 3 trains, they call them, LNG trains, where they take the gas and convert it into a liquid to be shipped off. They have a plan. This is straight. We actually happened to tour that. Judd was there too, and some of the other drawers. A 4th train, which will be bigger than any of the others. They will probably make a decision in the fall of 2023 if they're going to do that. And if they do, the bulk of that would be in Calcasieu Parish, which means we're the beneficiary over time as far as the taxes and the jobs. Of course, jobs come from everywhere. And we're very happy if it's in here or Cameron, don't get me wrong, but this one would actually be a more direct benefit to Calcasieu if it happens. Lastly, Energy Transfer Partners. Most of you will probably know of it as Lake Charles LNG. That's the one near the Industrial Canal on the east side of the river, way down Big Lake Road. That has been a dormant project for a long time. According to Dr. Scott's forecast, and he reaches out to these people directly, they believe maybe as early as the first quarter next year, they'll make a decision. So we don't know that these will happen. We don't know if 1, 2, 3, or none, but if all of them do, over time, the value of this is over $30 billion. That's just to build them. It's going to take a few years. So can we say for sure they're all going to happen? No, but y'all see the news and the world events. There is a huge demand for LNG, especially in Europe, but also in Asia. And I think they're going to need this. So we feel pretty optimistic about this. Just a couple other things. It's not so much in the economic projects, but your local university, McNeese, as you know, is constructing a new LNG Center of Excellence beginning in 23. Y'all have helped with a contribution to that. And just this week, Sewella was recently ranked the #1 community college in Louisiana by National College Review Association. So you've got industry and commerce, and you've got a 4-year university and a community college and technical school, all going in the right direction. We need them all. And we're doing a lot of the things that will make it less hiding in plain sight, and we're going to start seeing some more positive things as we go forward. So my last slide before our calendar, put all this in perspective. Let me bring it back down to the police jury. Police jury is a key player in this whole recovery. You're one of many agencies, businesses, schools, and so forth, but it's very important. So my message, our message is your plans are in place. August of last year, y'all passed the Community Recovery Plan, long term. A lot of the money for the goals in that plan are starting to come in. Some of this we can announce. We actually have one I think we can announce early next week. Earlier this year in April, you passed an updated strategic plan that's got your goals in it. So there's been plenty of plans. They're in place. We've got a lot of financial resources to carry these out. Your local tax dollars, CDBG, hazard mitigation, as Kelly mentioned, American Rescue Plan funds. These are big dollars. I would rather not have COVID and hurricanes, but know that because we had them, it is substantial what's going to come down the pike in the next 2, 3, 4 years and beyond, and it's going to make a big difference in helping us, but it's also going to be an economic driver. So with that, we are ready for the next steps of this journey, and part of that is passing the budget. And I'll end with this, Mr. Chairman. Today is the 17th of November. Any public comments are welcome between now and December 15th. In accordance with state law, you have to have a hearing. We have scheduled that, a public hearing, on December 1st, which will be right before your next police jury meeting. And that evening, we ask for a budget committee recommendation to the full jury, which will take it up for adoption on December 15th. And so certainly tonight, we're just introducing it. As you said, there is no action we're requesting, but we're here to answer any questions. And between now and whenever it's approved, we're certainly here for that too. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Beam, and thank you, staff, for all the hard work and a very good presentation. Any comments from any of the committee members? Seeing none, like I say, this is for informational purposes only. We'll move to item 3. Is there any other business that needs to be brought before us this evening? Seeing none,
Move to adjourn.
have a motion to adjourn. Any objections? We stand adjourned.